Guess. You're going to guess right now.
I'm going to guess right now.
Right.
It is in your basement. Is that right so far?
I don't know. Should I tell? Yeah, it's in the... I've never been good at keeping secrets. You'll probably just get it. It's in the basement. Yes.
And it's under the stairs.
What? Did I tell you that?
You did not tell me that.
No. You're a good guesser. Yeah, it's under the stairs.
Well,
welcome to Creative Insanity. Creative Insanity.
so who is Lindsay Rendleman? Well, she's many things to me. She's part of my childhood. We grew up together. We went to school together. We made fart jokes together. And she punched me in grade 6. She's a collaborator. Lindsay's been writing original music for over 5 years now, and I finally tricked her into writing something with me. If you haven't seen the music video for our song Suspect, it's my latest release. Go check it out. Pause the podcast, go check it out, and then come back to the podcast because I need you, all right? Thirdly, she's a friend. She's actually one of my best friends, and I friggin' love her. Beyond her insight into the creative life, which we dive into in this conversation, I find her to be a source of wisdom, humility, and inspiration. She's honestly one of those few instrumental people in my life who hold me up and remind me who I really am. And I'm Servant. I'm a rap artist, producer, and flailing creative man. And I'm here to make you more creative, maybe. And saner. So grab a drink and settle in. It's about to get janky. Lindsay Rendleman, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So I know you. I've known you a very long time. And I have a category of knowledge base that says Lindsay Randleman in my head. But some people listening to this, they might not know you. They might not know what kind of creative person you are. And I'd like for you to enlighten my audience. So if you wouldn't mind, tell us a bit about yourself. How did you become Lindsay Rendleman?
Well, I think first and foremost, I would consider myself a songwriter. In my creative endeavors, I think songwriting kind of comes in first. I dabble in some visual art stuff and some writing otherwise. I've written a little bit of poetry that I would like to be a children's book eventually. So I kind of dabble in a few different areas. I play multiple instruments, not to where I'd like to be on them, but I think any instrument is always a bit of a learning journey. You never really want to be. So
it's never mastered either. Even like the best people, they're always like, I'm trying to learn more. I suck. People are just like that.
Yeah. So it's good to have footage of yourself 2 years ago or when you started so that you can be like, oh, okay, at least I'm improving, even though you feel like you suck.
And ideally, it's footage of you playing the instrument and not just like random footage. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's helpful if it's in the same area. Sure.
Okay, so multi-instrumentalist. Let me slow you down for a second. You do like what? Ukulele, guitar? What do you do?
Yeah, mostly guitar, and then I branch off that and play bass and a little bit of drums. And we just got ukuleles for Christmas, so we learned a little bit on that. Piano is pretty lacking. I like to tinker around on it, but I can't get two hands working at the same time, so that's a bit of a problem.
Have you tried any other limbs?
No, I haven't. Have you?
Yes. Just the limbs, though. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I was getting other.
Yeah.
In my mind.
Let's move on. I am, by the way, drinking a Pepsi with rum, if anyone is curious. Because I'm celebrating. This is totally side trail. Totally side trail. It has nothing to do with you. But I'm just celebrating that my page actually got 1,000 Facebook likes tonight.
Cool. Sweet. Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, cheers you to that. I have a little bit of brown stuff.
Yeah.
Cheers.
I actually wanted to go in and cheers, but I had it spilled on my computer, so.
Don't do that.
Okay. Off the sidetrack. We're back to you play multiple instruments, and you consider yourself a songwriter first and foremost, and a bit of a poet, you said too. Which started first? Was it poetry? Was it songwriting?
Probably more in the poetry realm. I always kept a journal as a kid, and that it kind of started out as just writing down stories and making stuff up, and then it kind of became a more of a coping tool for whatever I was going through, ups and downs. So I have always kind of been inclined to writing anyway, and eventually I just kind of tied music and my writing together and tried to make a song, and it worked out. So now I write songs.
Yeah, you keep going.
Yeah.
I think you told me once before in your process that often it starts with the words, like you write something and then you can try to jig it to music, or am I misremembering that?
Yeah, I would say that it's more the opposite. Usually I find some kind of a melody first, or a group of chords that works well together and I like it, and then end up writing to that. Sometimes I'll incorporate something that I wrote before, like in a journal entry or something, and play off of an idea that was kind of already written. But for the most part, when I start writing lyrics to a song, it never finishes the way it started. It's often a completely different idea, and that just kind of happens in the writing. But I think that's part of the process and part of figuring out what it is that I really want to say and how I can say it in a way that fits syllable wise and maybe rhymes, and that makes me understand what I'm trying to say a lot better, because I'm trying to mold it so that it fits.
So it's kind of like, almost sounds like an investigation or discovery, like you're trying to figure out what you want to say as opposed to having something preconceived jumping into it. So you're more discovery writing.
Yeah. Oh, is that a thing?
I guess so. I mean, like, I write stories, and in like the story writing world, there's what do they call them, pantsers and planners or whatever. Basically, there's some people who they're like, I'm gonna do this thing, I'm gonna make this project, so I'm gonna think of all the rules about it. I'm gonna kind of stretch it into acts. I'm gonna figure out what I need to do, and then I'm gonna hit it. And then there's other writers who are like, I don't have that kind of time, patience, or brain, so they just start writing and see what happens. And that's more like me too, is like, it's the discovery. I wonder, like, what drives you to start writing when you do start writing, like when you start working on a song? Is it like, you said coping when you were a kid, is it still a form of coping for you, or is it something that is like a curiosity? Is it an activity? Like, how do you view that initial start, that push?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's more of a curiosity probably, and I don't know, like the mood has to strike. I can't just sit down generally and just decide that I'm going to write, and then I go ahead and do it and it's great. Usually if I sit down and decide I'm going to write, it doesn't turn out that good. It kind of has to be like, I don't know, just inspired in some way. And that can be, it has been coping in some instances. Like Replay, you've heard Replay. That after a friend of ours died in a car accident, and it kind of just felt like that's just what was coming through in that time. And it was a very short time after he passed away. So that was like really part of my grieving process, was to put that down.
You never told me that's what it was about.
Well, I didn't want to ruin your idea of what it was about.
My idea was totally different. And
but I like that. I like that people have different interpretations, and I kind of hate to spoil that, but that's an example, I guess, of one that's inspired by something going on.
Well, I mean, it's a terrible, terrible thing, terrible kind of form of inspiration. But in some ways, I'm really glad to know that that was your inspiration, because, like, when we're done recording, I'm going to, like, go listen to it again and try to decode it a little further. Because I do find it interesting sometimes to know what the artist's intent is. Other times, it maybe it's not good to know, or sometimes having that general idea float from individual to individual and be different is okay and probably desirable. But maybe that's just my songwriter curiosity. I just like to know where people are coming from.
So when you're writing, do you want people to know what you were thinking, or do you like to leave it open, or how do you feel about that?
That's a good question. I guess that for people who I like, admire, or respect, I do like to tell them if they ask where I'm coming from. When it comes to, I guess if the intention, like if it's somebody who's just sort of like, oh, cool song, bro, like what were you thinking? That's not really. I'll just be. I'm not going to engage that so much. But when it's someone that I really care about, or someone who is invested and wants to know, I tend to give my perspective on it. But I usually stress that it's just one perspective. It's not necessarily what they're going to get out of it, or even what the point of the song is, because I've written stuff too, like I feel one way about it, like it's doing one thing, and then years later I hear it again and it slaps me in a whole other way that I didn't have the foresight for or the planning. Like it just happened, where I was like, wow, like I can't believe that can happen. So I feel like meaning can change as well. So I don't want to lock it down too much, but I can usually describe what I was feeling when I wrote it. It's a very emotional process for me typically. Okay, so we have, so curiosity is an interesting word that you would say. Like, is it curious to you in that you want to know what it's about, or is it that you want to know what you have to say? Like, do you view it as an extension of yourself, your art? Or is it more like a chair and a carpenter? Like it's a different thing?
Yeah, it's kind of more, there's a certain point where I'll get excited about it and be like, "Ooh, I wonder what this is going to turn out to be." Like how it sounds and what it's about. Because I don't always have that plan right away. That kind of happens as I'm going. So yeah, I get excited about what it might be from where it starts, because it's often pretty different. I don't know if that answers that question or not.
It does. When you have like the initial start of an idea, do you find that sometimes that curiosity can work against you? Does it ever intimidate you? Like this could be anything, therefore I don't know what to do about it?
Yeah, I sometimes get ahead of myself on an idea. Like there was this one song that I was so sure at the beginning that it was going to be in some way about the Wizard of Oz. And I told Bob about it, and I was like so excited. And then it wasn't flowing very well with that idea in mind. It was like, just wasn't turning out that great. But I was sort of stuck on that idea. Like, no, it's going to be about the Wizard of Oz. And then at some point, I guess I just kind of abandoned that and started writing whatever felt right and felt like it flowed better. And it ended up completely not being about the Wizard of Oz whatsoever.
That's cool, though. That's so mysterious and interesting to me. Just the whole process of, it's like, how can you not know what it's going to be? But yet, often those things turn out to be something amazing. Like, I'm hard-pressed to find an example of something else like that in life, but I'm sure there's plenty of it. It's just discovering something that has no face, that's just sound and words, is it's a very haunting thing for me, and mysterious, because it's like you're uncovering something that you don't know where it came from. Did it come from your subconscious? Did it come from the mind of someone else? Did it come from some muse? Did it come from God? Did it come from Satan? Where did it come from? Like it's a crazy thing to think about. And I think that's one of the things that I really like about making art, is that you're entering into some kind of mystery. It's like you're in a novel that you don't know how it's going to end, which is just really exciting and invigorating. And humbling too, because you don't, like I said, you don't know where it comes from. So when these things do connect, when a line connects to the other and an image comes through it, yeah, you're just like at the feet of something beautiful, and I really love that. And I think it's really cool that it's like your process is like that in a lot of ways, like that you kind of have that discovery element to it.
Mhm.
Um, which I admire. I really like that. I think that it takes that humility for you to sit down and be like, I'm just gonna explore when the Wizard of Oz doesn't work out. Uh, anyway, those are just some thoughts about that. Um, tell me a little bit more about your story though. Like you started dinking around on instruments like at what age about, and then because you're in a wicked band now, and like the time between those two things, what happened?
Yeah, I started kind of late, in my opinion. I kind of putzed around on a piano and stuff when I was a kid, but nothing. I didn't ever take any lessons. I was just noodling around. And then when I think I was 18, 17, 18, when I learned my first chord on a guitar. And I totally did that just to impress a boy, and it's Bob. I'm still with him. So
Yeah.
Bob was a musician in our hometown, and I really looked up to him and thought he was super cool. So I wanted to impress him. Probably, I think that probably had something to do with it. So I started learning, and my mom played guitar, so she taught me a bunch of stuff. And most of what I know came from Bob, because we started dating shortly after I started learning
You
guitar.
got him with the chord. Yeah.
So we've been together for 11 years now, and he plays in the band with me. So we jam together and make stuff all the time, which is awesome. I get to play with my mentor, which is super cool. But I didn't start writing until Bob's brother Travis started coming over to jam with Bob. And that was probably in 2014 or something.
Okay.
So they would play together, and I would I think the first thing I did was I got a tambourine, and I was like in the shaking a tambourine or some shakers or something. And then I started kind of wooing, sort of not harmonizing, but just doing some backup stuff. And then they were like, okay, pick up a bass and do this. Tell me what to do. And then I was kind of in the band. And then from there, I'm not sure what exactly sparked it, but Bob and Travis both write their own music.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I thought I would give it a shot, and I wrote my first song in probably 2015, like a year later. And then it worked out, and they were really supportive, and we played it as a band and stuff. So that was really encouraging to keep writing. So I just kind of carried on from there.
Yeah, you had a real strong nest to encourage the musical growth. I wonder where you'd be without that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I probably would have given up on guitar because it's hard. those first couple months, or even the first couple years, you're like, these fingers do not do what you want. They don't bend that way. They're not strong enough. You just think that your hand specifically can't do that. So many people think that when they start guitar, and probably other instruments too. Just oh, I'm not cut out for this because my fingers don't want to go there. But they do eventually if you just keep practicing and keep, the slow, ugly sounding stuff while you're trying to go back and forth between chords. That's where the gold is.
Yeah. Well, I can identify with that. Even if now, I play guitar, but I don't play it to play it. I don't play it as I'm not like a musician. A lot of people would say I am, but I can't. I have maybe just a particular definition in my own mind to me that's other people wouldn't consider. But I really look at musicians as people who play musical instruments to actually play them, for fun. I write so much now, I make music. So whenever I grab the guitar, it's to write music. It's to do a thing. It's to explore and all that. But it's I don't play it just to have fun with it. If I learn the song, I don't keep playing it again and again. I'll only learn it if I'm going to perform it for a show or something. And then I've got buddies and people that I know who just play all the time. Like they practice regularly. And I just kind of see that and think like, that's a real musician. That's someone who like loves their instrument and wants to do stuff with it. I guess I could say maybe piano is maybe I'm a bit of a musician when it comes to piano, because the piano it's emotional processing for me at times, but I still just use it like a hammer. I still just use it to do a thing. I want to write this and I record into Ableton and I make it, and I seldom relearn it or rehash it, you know?
See, I think you share the same sentiments with a lot of musicians. People, I don't know. I think a lot of musicians who are truly musicians tend to think that they're not quite there yet. And that kind of goes back to what I was saying before. Like you always think that there's more to learn and you could be better, and so-and-so's better and they've been playing for way less time. Like you're kind of comparing yourself to other people. I kind of struggle with that too. Like I play some stuff. I don't know if I'd say I'm a musician or not.
Maybe that's it. I wonder if maybe I'm a coward from the term, you know, and maybe we all are in our own ways, but you like, shouldn't be.
Someone else to say you're a musician.
Yeah, if someone else says it, then it's like, yeah, I'm a musician, sure. But so, I mean, for the record, you're a musician, because I know I know you play guitar regularly. I know you write a lot, and I know that you challenge yourself with that stuff too. And as you said, it is hard. My fingers, they lose their callus so quickly. They have a bit of a callus now because I've been writing some guitar stuff, but like when they lose that callus, I feel like such a pussy when I grab it, because it's just like, ow, ow, the pain. Like I can't do what I'm trying to do. And it's like very painful for at least a couple of days or something like that. And then it gets, normal again. But I guess maybe there's, okay, let's say we're musicians. I feel just like, just hypothetically. I sometimes see musicians like where their life is the instrument in a way. It seems like a next level musician. Someone who comes to mind is someone actually I've had on the podcast before, Jasmine Crow. She plays violin every day, and she's really, really good at it. I would consider kind of like master level. Like she's played since she was a kid. She could be in any orchestra she wanted, but she loves it and she does it like all the time and maintains a high level of skill. To me, that's like, I see that as like, that's like some next level stuff, you know, that I don't have. And I don't feel bad about it either. I don't wish that I had it. I think I kind of accept the kind of composer that I am. It's interesting. It's neat how there's so many avenues. There's so many different ways you can make art, and each artist has like their favorites, their proclivities, the areas they're stronger in, the areas they're weaker in. But you pushed through challenge. You said it was hard. You wanted to impress Bob, which you successfully did.
Yeah.
And then you had a nice environment because like you guys were jamming together and you grew in confidence, it sounds like. Yeah. And now you're like lead singer in a great many songs, and you seem to write a lot, and you're doing your own thing on the side too. Like it's exponential growth because I think you've had the right ingredients and the right predisposition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's constant growth for sure. And I reflect on that fairly often, just like to keep myself going. Like, well, I have come a long way, so I should see how far I can go with it. And I'm probably a minimal effort into getting better. Like I don't spend hours and hours practicing every day because I'm not that dedicated. But I do, like with the band that we're playing with now, Austin and Todd are our other band members, and in my mind, they're way better than me, and Bob's way better than me. So I like feel like I need to keep up with them, which is a really good thing, to play with people that are better than you, because it forces you to to keep up.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's kind of been a constant up level for me since we started playing with them. I think it's been coming up 2 years with Austin, and then Todd joined shortly after that. So
Yeah.
they're keeping me on my toes that way.
That's good. I know the only way I learned how to strum was at camp because I was surrounded by other guitar players who could strum. And so, yeah, like me trying to level up to be able to do what they could do, I couldn't figure it out because I was a piano player at heart. And so plucking made sense to me. But strumming did not make sense to me. I couldn't figure it out. But I know that it was just, it was the environment, having that challenge around you, people who were better than you, made me better, made me able to do it. Yeah, that's so cool. And so just because we haven't said it yet, your band's name is Loser Tuesdays, which is like the best name ever. And I really love it. And you guys have got a lot of music that you've been cooking up, and you guys have been jamming a long time. You guys have performed a little bit too. And
not really.
Not really?
We've never performed outside of our basement. We've had people over.
Well, okay. Well,
we haven't left the basement yet. We were actually really just gearing up to go out. We did one open mic, like an acoustic open mic.
That counts.
And then shortly after that, the lockdowns and stuff changed. Bars weren't open and whatever. So we were like just psyching up to go out, and then everything shut down. And then after that, new restrictions came in, and we haven't been jamming since like November. It sucks.
Yeah, that sucks.
End of November, I'll say. But yeah. So we kind of lost some steam, I guess. Not steam, but we usually would jam once a week, if not twice a week. So that was a really regular thing that I'm like really super missing right now.
Yeah, what was that doing for your mental health?
The lockdown?
Jamming, I mean, like having that part of your life. Yeah.
Jamming, great. Jamming was like, I look forward to it every week. It was like the one thing that I knew would always be there. It was like a non-negotiable. I remember when I got a job last year at a bar, and they were like asking me what hours I could work. And I was like, I can work anytime at all, but not Friday night. Friday night's jam night. I'm not doing it. Don't ask me. They were like, yeah, okay, cool. And I think everybody kind of had that with whatever was going on in their lives. Like Friday's reserved, and that's what we do. And
it's strange to me that you guys don't jam on Tuesdays.
Sometimes we do.
I wondered, okay, where did the name come from then?
The name came from, well, I know where it came from. It's kind of a long story, I guess.
Well, this is long form media, so you can tell it if it's interesting.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you. But I don't know if it's going to be interesting to anyone listening. It's kind of an inside joke. Bob works at a resort, and it's a summertime resort. So in the fall, they close it down. No one comes out anymore. It's just shut down for the winter months. And Bob's job is to come in. He comes in once a week just to make sure that everything's fine. The water's not frozen, clean up, do snow removal, that kind of thing. Like just keep an eye on stuff. And that day was Tuesday. That was his scheduled day to come in. And his coworker, Terry, and they're like always at each other.
Yeah.
They're really good friends. And one day Terry just asked him, so are you still coming in for Loser Tuesdays? That's where the name came from. Because he felt like a loser coming in on those days and like mopping footprints or whatever. Like, yeah, that's the story. You can cut that if you want.
No. I ain't cutting anything. No, that's great. Band names are fascinating to me because like I don't have one. Okay, I have a soloist name. I guess that's like the same thing as a band name, but it's not like creative in that sense. It's it's like a literal, it's like an acronym or something. It's like part my actual name, Spencer Richard Vent. And it's just kind of a clever play on words, but it's not something like, I don't know, trying to think of what's a great band name. Combat Road band name. You know what I mean?
Never heard of it.
I made it up. I looked at the
Oh.
the book there.
I'm like, shit.
I saw my Desert Combat Jack O'Neill toy over there, and then I saw Cormac McCarthy's The Road, so I put it together.
Here we go. You should be a band name generator, just sitting in your room.
You know, those already exist. I'd be out of a job. So November. When did we start working on Suspect? Because it was, I think, a little bit before November. Shortly before.
It was October, maybe.
Oh, okay.
Come there in October.
Yeah, you were going to come up, but then it was the COVID restrictions, and then you could record at home is what it worked out for some of it.
Yeah. I think I got sick right when I was going to come out.
Yeah.
I was like, better not. But yeah, then we figured it that I could record my vocals from home and send it to you, or at least just try that and see if it was
doable. And it was.
And lots of people are doing that right now. Like, there's a way to do it without having to be in the same room. So
yeah,
I'll try it. And yeah, it worked out.
Yeah, actually, like, I'm curious about your acoustic setup, but it's probably not that interesting to other people. It's just like, I wonder where you recorded it, because it was really good sound.
Oh, I was standing next to my table in a completely open room with no effort put in.
Really?
Blocking it or anything.
Okay, so
no, I had a microphone and was like standing in my hallway, basically.
Yeah?
Yeah, I didn't set anything up for it.
See, that's the thing. Okay, that to me is phenomenal in some ways, because when I was a kid, or when before I was kind of into the music stuff in a professional sense, I was thinking that you had to be in these perfect studio environments to make things work. You had to spend thousands of dollars having sound soakers and blankets hung on the wall like that. You had to have all the perfect stuff to make it work. But you didn't. You recorded in a hallway, and it wound up on this track with me, which is dope. And no one has called me and said, boy, Lindsay's vocals, they just don't sound very good, because they sound great. Like, it's been a facade. It's been a lie. Like, you can mix so much from an untreated environment, or even partially treated environment. I understand.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I might have undersold that a bit, I guess, because we do have, like, where I was in our jam room, and we do have like foam all over the walls and like some sound diffusers like that. So like, yeah, it wasn't a totally fair room. I just didn't set up, like, in the past we've set up, and this is like super, I want to use the word janky.
That's your word, though. You have to use janky.
It was janky in that it was like a blanket hung up as like a booth, and that was like the vocal booth. We've done that before, but we just didn't this time.
Yeah, and that sounds great. I've heard a lot of recordings from that sort of thing. People recording in their closet and stuff like that. I mean, for me, I made my sound soakers out of insulation and monk's cloth. And I mean, it's really cheap, just really, really cheap setup. Needed a few nails because I boxed them, and I've kind of moved from studio to studio space. So I don't know, like, I've spent very little money on the whole. I think the most I spent was I bought this in this shot here, this blanket. Oh, wow, my finger's doing the opposite thing I wanted to do. Anyway, blanket back there, and there's like a blanket over there that I bought because this room was just not treated well enough. But the point stands anyway, is like, you can do a lot just with simple setups. This microphone, this is an AT2020, I think, Audio-Technica. I walked into a Long and McQuaid in 2015, so right around the time you started writing music. And I just said, I want to record music into my computer. So I needed an audio interface. I got a UR22. It's pretty cheap, not a big expensive thing. And then he's like, this microphone's pretty good too. I've done everything that I've ever recorded on this microphone. And I think it was like $100 or so. Like,
oh, really? Wow.
It's not a crazy expensive microphone. I mean, I've learned how to mix it a little bit, maybe, or how it interacts with the space I'm in. But I mean, I'm dirt cheap with my equipment. Like, people would be surprised. I got these KRK monitors that I mix with. They're really cheap compared to most monitors, and I got them secondhand from a dude named Dallas Chooch, who's an awesome guy. And yeah, I got them like really cheap. I've never upgraded anything.
Well, it's not broke.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's how I mean, I can't take credit for all the gear we have, and I wouldn't even know how to tell you what we have. Because it's all Bob.
Bob's the guy.
Bob's the guy, yeah. He's been buying and selling stuff for years because he's been playing for a long, long time. And yeah, but everything's secondhand. He's always buying and selling and trading up and researching and whatever. And I'm just like, yeah, sounds good. I just get to play with it. So
I feel like I'd learn a lot from Bob. I've been wanting to meet Bob for some time because I feel like his knowledge on the sound gear and stuff, and plus like some of those mixes that you sent me, they sound so good. Like, you guys are doing such a good job with what you've got. I mean, you're locked up with the Corona, but you're making really, really good stuff. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna switch tacks here.
okay.
So what have you learned about staying sane regarding your music? Like, does your music help you stay sane? Does it ever make you insane? And what kind of tips and tricks or things have you learned along the way to really make the most advantage?
Yeah, I think for the most part, it's something that helps me stay sane, because a lot of the time it's something that when you're playing or writing, you're completely absorbed in that. I'm completely absorbed in that, and you can't think of anything else. So it's a mindfulness practice, is what it is, or a meditation. If you're in the zone, that's a really special place to be in itself. And then, depending on what the song ends up being about, sometimes it is something that you're going through and you need to process, or it's something that I need to say to someone else, but I'm not going to say it to them, or I'm not going to say it in that way. And it's just like kind of an unfiltered, this is what I really think, but I'm never going to tell you that.
Yeah.
So it's helpful in that way, just processing stuff in the lyric writing part of it. And then I think it probably could cause some insanity if you were too attached to a certain outcome, or for it to be perfect. I think I'm pretty laid back in not having super high expectations. Maybe that's not the right way to phrase it, but at a certain point, I just go, yeah, good enough, it's done. And I just stop working on it, and then it's done at that point. Because you could tweak it and change the words and change the structure a little bit, or just like mess around with it forever and ever.
Yeah.
At some point you have to be like, yeah, this is good. I'm happy with that. So not having a super perfectionist mindset about it, just let it be what it is. And if it's good enough for my ears, then it's good enough to call it done. And I don't care what anyone else thinks. And once it's done, I won't edit it anymore, even if maybe this is a bad thing, but even if it's suggested that it's not great, I go, well, it's already written, so I'm not changing it. Too late.
No, see, that's great. Honestly, you nailed a couple of things that I've personally had demons that I've tangled with. Perfectionism is one of them that I finally feel like I've kind of got locked. I finally understand my process, and I had to write a song about it to help figure it out, because perfectionism is so deadly when people are trying to. Well, you know why? It's because when you start making music, you suck, probably, in a lot of ways, right? When I started making music, let's say maybe my best quality was my lyricism. I've always had a nice way with words, and but I'm not a great singer. I certainly wasn't when I started. 17-year-old playing guitar. I was not the best guitarist. I I did know how to mix. Like I started recording tracks. I had this like H4 recorder where I could do 4 different tracks, and like my timing would be off. And then I didn't know about EQing things. I didn't know about um, complementary sounds and composition and high end, low end bass. I didn't know about bass. I didn't know about bass for fucking ever. Like I'm trying to think how far along I was. And hey, speaking of Dallas Chooch, who sold me these KRKs, his last name isn't Chooch. I should clarify. He's called Chooch as a nickname. Oh God, what's his last name?
I was kind of wondering. I was like, oh, that's
Yeah,
a cool.
he's actually he's like a world class Aboriginal dancer, and he's a really really cool guy. Yeah, I worked with him in the city. He was gonna like produce for me for a little bit, and then we kind of went separate ways. But when I figured out how to produce myself, anyway, yeah, he listened to a bunch of my demos and stuff that I was working on that I thought was the shit, and he was like, "Dude, where's your bass? Like, you have no bass instruments anywhere. It's missing bass."
Oh, yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, well, to a piano player and to someone who's never seen an EQ thing before, like you can miss that. Like it all just sounded pretty good to me. So anyway, the point is like so many, let's say rudimentary lessons, I didn't grasp at the time. Um, Chances are, no, a lot of people don't grasp all these things. Like we all suck when we start. You don't see the fruit of it until you've been at it for some time, and these things start to click. And perfectionism will kill you when you suck, right? It
Yeah.
will, because you will look at your stuff and go, well, this doesn't sound like, I don't know, Russ or whoever it is that you're admiring. This doesn't sound like Flyleaf or whatever, Okay, that's because of the level you're at. But if you stop now, you're never going to get there. And there's so many people who stop then. There's so many people who hear what's coming out of their mouth and they compare it to the radio and go, well, I guess it's not for me. Like you said, I guess my fingers aren't just made for playing guitar, and it's horse shit. And it taunts people, like there's some people who have musical aspirations, and not even for fame, but let's say musical aspirations because it's a form of expression they wish to take pride in, and they can't because they haven't put the work in, and years go by, and then they always have that in the back of their mind. Like, that's why I think your story is really cool, is because when we were kids, so we went to grade school together, I didn't know you were musical, actually. You were like the fart joke queen. You were, but like I never thought you were like a musical person because
I was then. I would say I was then. I wasn't until I was like 18, and I had already been moved away at that point. So I didn't know either.
Yeah. Well, and you were like, you said 2015 when you started really getting into it. So you would have been 25, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Like some people like have told me it's like, man, if you don't start by the time you're like a kid, it's like the dream is over. But it's garbage. I didn't start doing my rap stuff seriously until I was 25. It was the same year, 2015.
Yeah.
Okay.
Never start, whatever it is, anything. I just went back to school too. I went back. I think I started back in college when I was 27, and I was like, oh man, I'm gonna be the oldest person there, and I'm gonna be like, I fit in and stuff. But like, there's so many people that are my age and much older going back to school for the first time. Like, it really doesn't matter when you start.
Yeah.
As long as it's what you want to do.
Yeah, I know, it's very true.
But something that might hold you back is trying to write something that you think will impress whoever is going to hear it first. Like I always show, there's a handful of people that I'll show stuff to when it's first written, and when I consider it done, or even sometimes before I consider it done, I'll send it to like Austin, Todd, and Bob.
Right.
Always hear it first. And I don't know if it's actually held me back, though, to be honest, because I know they're going to hear it, so I do want them to like it. But at the same time, if I don't like it, I'm not going to show them. Like,
Yeah.
I have to like it first, and then I'm just like, oh, I hope they don't totally shit on it. Which they don't. They're super supportive. So, yeah, it's usually well received, whatever it is. It might not get played in the band. That's a different thing, too, right? Like, all of us write, and we all have different styles of writing, and what we play together as a band is kind of decided by the group. Like, if everybody likes it, then we'll play it. If only one or two people like it, maybe not, or maybe not yet.
Yeah.
So there's always that too. Like, I guess, yeah, maybe you have to put your ego aside a little bit and understand that not everything you write is everyone's cup of tea, and that's okay.
Yeah, that's a whole other dynamic as well, is the fact that you're in a band, and therefore you have multiple minds making decisions, and it's not all up to you. This is an experience that I am not sure how I feel about it, but I've missed out on it. The most band experience I ever had was with a band called Form 10. And at the time, one of the main guitar players, a guy named Russ Murray, and he's awesome. And so I wound up, he did some guitar tracks for my music, and we're friends, and it's awesome. And then I wound up opening for their band for a show, and their band liked one of my songs so much that they wanted to do their own rendition of it. So they did like a rock version live take of my song, and I performed with them.
That was Raise My Empire.
Raise My Own Empire. Yeah, that's the one. And
awesome.
it was.
And I've seen the footage actually of you guys playing at a bar or something, some venue.
Yeah, that was at their show.
Cool.
Guy named Jeff something. Sorry, Jeff. But he recorded it and had sent it to us. And yeah, it was electric. It was so fun being on stage. And not only that, but like when we were rehearsed, we were at one of the guys' places in the basement, and I was there with my wife, and we were just like chilling. And then we were in like this padded room with these blaring drums, and it's a different experience for me because I'm so used to just doing my own thing, having control over all of it. Like, when do I release? What do I perform? What do I write? What do I care about? All of that. And it's a good thing because I have that kind of agency, that kind of efficacy, let's say, over my own career at times. Because if you're in a band and someone's just like a drag and they don't want to do this, they don't want to do that, I think a lot of people in bands can have had that experience. But it's also a negative thing. It's a detractor because you're lonely sometimes, and you kind of wish that you had that collaboration. And I think it ties into like Suspect for me is I've collaborated with a lot of people because I've learned that I really love to collaborate. But sometimes, honestly, like my approach to collaboration in the past has been more like a dictator and less like a band member, more like, I wrote this song. Who would be a great singer to sing the hook that I wrote? Can I get them to sing for me? Somehow trick them into it or whatever, or do some trade-off or something, and just sort of orchestrate and organize the whole thing. And it's a kind of solitary, it's like, I'm cool, I'm collaborating, but it's a sort of lonely process in a way. But around the time that I worked with you is there's a couple other people that I had started to open up with, but you in particular, I did the grind, process some deep shit. You heard it. You encouraged me. I started sending you more music. And then the time just sort of came that you were finally like, all right, let's collaborate. So I sent you something, and I really just let go in a way that I haven't before, where I was like, I'm going to do my part. I'm going to make this beat super sick. I'm going to send it. I'm going to write a verse, and I'm just going to see like what happens. What do you turn it into? And it's like the improvisational yes and approach. And that's like more like being in a band, I guess. And I really love it, actually. It's a lot of fun. I want more of my collaborations to be like that.
Hmm. Yeah, I really liked how we balanced it out too. And I have never really collaborated in that way with anyone before either. Not quite where you're, yeah, like writing your own vocal patterns and lyrics to a single track. I hadn't done that before. So that was an interesting one. Like most of the time when we're writing or playing as a band, it's like I'll bring a song that I wrote, and here's me doing my stuff with an acoustic guitar or just the rhythm guitar, whatever. It's usually how I do it. And then I just let the boys fill it in however they want. So whoever's on, like we switch around a bit. So whoever's on the drums, whatever beat they come up with is probably going to be wicked. And whatever the bass line is probably going to be great. Like I don't hold any expectation for what that's going to sound like. But the whole structure and everything has been pre-written by me or by one of the other guys.
Yeah.
We've written a few. Have we written a few together? I guess we probably have, where we're like going back and forth and deciding what sounds best and stuff. But yeah, different process a little bit, which is really cool, depending on who you work with.
Yeah. Have you ever found that, like, do you have a preference, or is it really just like a mood thing? Because it's different to say, like, I guess, what part do you like more? Is it you writing in your bedroom or whatever it is you write kind of by yourself, coming up with something, and then feeling this sense of like, I did it. Here's the thing. This is wonderful. Or is it the process of bringing that to your band and having them kind of re-articulate it for you in a musical way? Do you have a preference, or do you see it as just two different things?
I see it as two different things, two very exciting things, because they're both really uplifting. Like it's never a disappointment to finish a song on my own. And sometimes I'll sit on it for a while and listen to it a bunch of times where it's just me doing it and just be happy that I wrote it and it's done, and just like let myself be proud of that on my own. And then when I'm ready to let someone else mess with it, then I'll give it to them and see what they do with it. And it's always like they blow me away every time. So that's really exciting.
Well, I really like that. I admire that, and I got a taste of that working with you and some other artists too. Like I can think of like when I did a track with Afro, I was kind of like dictator in a half sense because I came up with the concept and the beat and stuff. But I was like, hey, just a suggestion. Like, what if you took the perspective of this other person in the story? And then I backed away, and then he was like, yeah, man, I got you. And he just kind of went to town, and then we had more back and forths about it, and it turned into something really cool. So that could have been a taste for me. And not to, just to clarify, like not to detract from other collaborations like I've had with like Fran Minnie, for instance, because she's done her own writing, and it's just been a different experience because she's someone I've never met in person. She's someone all the way in the UK. And the first...
Can I stop you there and ask you how you made a connection with her?
So I was walking down the street. Just kidding. Okay, so Fran Minnie, actually, I heard her on an independent radio station. And
cool.
Yeah, it was an internet independent radio station. I'm trying to think what point I was in my music thing. I was living in Edmonton, and I was like researching artists, maybe. I don't know what I was doing listening to that, but I was in iTunes independent radio stations, and I was just like browsing different cool things, and I heard her voice from one of her tracks, and I thought she was kind of like Colby Calais, like she was just she had a really unique voice and a very easy listening sound, and I was like, there's no way I could work with someone like that. Like she's got such a unique thing going on. And she's clearly from the UK with her accent. But the internet provided me her home address, and no, just kidding. No, I looked up her website probably. I just checked out some of her stuff, and I was like, fuck it. I really like her, and I want to ask her if she'd ever like want to do something with me. I've changed my approach a bit with collaboration for sure, but she was just open to it, and she was really nice. She's got such a nice heart, and we've become friends since, and we worked together twice, right? And we're going to work together a third time.
Hey,
Yeah, it'll be for the trilogy of songs about hope.
cool.
Yeah.
Excited to hear that.
But yeah, she was just like nice. Like that's the thing I find in the music scene is that some people are full of themselves. Some people, whatever pocket of accolade they have going on in their life has risen to the top of their head, and they're unable to see clearly when someone is approaching them with honest intention. So they get embittered or they get full of themselves. It could be a combination, or busy. I mean, there's that too, but there's just people who kind of don't have the time of day because they've had their success and they feel like everyone is a leech unless they're looking up to them. But other people aren't like that. I mean, like Fran Minnie's not like that. Afro isn't like that. There's a lot of people who, Jasmine Crowe is not like that. It's people who are like doing, let's say, really good in their careers who genuinely they have good hearts. They want to do things that matter to them. And it's not about the accolades. It's about the process of what they're doing. And so Fran was like that. She was like, I have no idea who you are. You're from Canada. That's cool. Send me something. And I sent it to her and she was like, this sounds great. Let's do something. And Afro was similar, this sounds great, man. This is totally different. I'm down. Let's try something. And that's a much better, I mean, certainly it's validating, but it's just a nice thing when people are humble enough to want to work with you. But I think a lot of it comes from maybe my intention as well. Like I'm not trying to capitalize on people's movements or whatever. It's that I'm more appreciative of their sensibilities. So you've collaborated with me on Suspect, which was wonderful. For me, it was a very cathartic song because like you say, it's coping, and I didn't know where to start that one. But I guess I started with my childhood, and it was something that I feel like I processed something with it. And to me, that's a rush. That's kind of what I'm about now is I like collaborating. I like doing stuff with people I enjoy because it makes me feel like I have a band. Are there any other like struggles for you in this sort of arena of music? Is there ever something that makes it hard? Like...
Yeah, I think there's a few things. And one of them is feeling like I should be writing at a certain pace. Like I set goals for myself, I'd like to write, I don't know, like a song a month would be great. And every year since I've been writing more songs per year. But that's kind of by accident. It just kind of happens that way because I find if I'm trying to force it or if there's too much pressure, time-wise, it just doesn't feel right. Like I really like to let it breathe and just let it be whatever it's going to be, but I don't want to force anything on it. And I can tell when it's feeling forced. I don't know if it will come across. I think probably it would come across as rushed if I just put it out and I wasn't totally happy with it. So I have to allow myself to have time with it, and there is no deadline. What else was I going to say? I had, and it's gone now.
Something.
Oh, just not feeling creative. Not feeling very inspired or very motivated to write anything. Sometimes you just don't, and it's hard to put yourself in that mindset. Although there are ways to do it, I think. For me, if I move my body in some way, like if I'm walking or after a workout, I tend to feel more creative. Or sometimes if I'm driving, that kind of gives me some space to have some creativity. Also, like my environment makes a difference. Like things have to be clean and things have to smell good for me to be like relaxed enough to want to write. Like if I think there's something that needs to be done, it's just really distracting for me.
Yeah,
So it has to, yeah, the environment has to be sort of conducive. Is that the right word?
that is actually the right word. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think too that environment is really important. And um like I keep my studio clean. Uh to my wife's annoyance, I don't keep the house to the same standard at times, but like I really, where I think I want to be kind of clean, and if you go work somewhere on something creative and it's a mess, I do find it very distracting. And I'm not like a neat freak, like I'm not polishing the desk or anything like that, but it's just that if there's a lot of things laid out, it makes me feel, well, it's an area of procrastination too, because I feel like I should clean and so I can distract myself from what I'm actually trying to do. But if I can't clean and the space is good, then you sit down and you're like, well, all I
Well,
can do. Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm. What do you think has there been any surprising benefits for indulging your creativity? Stuff that you didn't think maybe when you first started would come of it?
Mm, yeah, I think at first I didn't realize how much processing of things there would be. Like the first song I wrote was meaningful to me, and I was kind of trying to put something down metaphorically that I was trying to say. Yeah, that was kind of surprising how much, for me, putting it in a song makes me understand what I'm trying to say. Whereas when I start, I maybe don't really understand. But yeah, like trying to shape the words and just say it in a way that fits and it's not like too direct and it's maybe rhymes here and there. Like you have to be able to say the same thing a lot of different ways. And in order to do that, you have to really understand what you want to say.
But that's cool to me that it helps you understand what you want to say. Is the act of creating the poetry is kind of like, I didn't realize this was such a big deal for me, and you're like, wow, it's really pouring out. That to me is a really cool experience too, how it takes a mind of its own. Um, so that's cool. Is a surprising benefit for you is that it has helped you process things that you didn't think you would, or maybe that you needed to process.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, and I would also put on there too that something that surprised me a bit was how like close of a bond you get with the people that you're making music with. Like that's such a unique friendship or relationship to have, to share stuff that's rough. Like if you're not quite happy with it, like to sing in front of someone or send someone your dry ass vocals. That's like really puts you in a really vulnerable place, and to have the other side of that accept it and like not judge you or whatever, like, or be able to give you some feedback, like some constructive criticism, to be able to go back and forth with that without people being offended. That's like, it's just a really unique relationship, and like, yeah, really fuses you together.
yeah.
I think.
I totally agree. I think that it's like I guess maybe the right word for me is like it's a kind of intimacy in like collaboration and friendship and whatnot. It's the kind of thing that um like you, for instance, like working, let's say on Suspect with me, there's like a unique part of me that you kind of got to maybe see or work with. Um, and I feel like because maybe Suspect writing that was such a like a time, kind of like it's weird. It's like it was kind of a gut wrenching song for me, as much as it was like, yeah, it's really hard hitting and so catchy and fun. it was also something that I really needed to process. And as a lot of my creative output is, it's processing. When you're sharing that with somebody, yeah, you can kind of feel close to them in a way. Like you've seen me process this thing, and like you saw, like, I took part of this verse and I changed it. I tweaked it to kind of better suit things, and you kind of get the insider's look at how I'm dealing with something, like how I'm working through something, and that's special to me for sure. And I think that's maybe one of the unexpected special things that I found in collaboration is collaborating with people who I admired and thought were awesome was kind of like this monolith in my mind that I was looking up to and thinking, boy, that would be cool. But I wasn't realizing that it's more than cool. It's cathartic. It's it's a way that I get to be human, and I get to be myself. And that's what life's about. It's like it's kind of touching the deepest part of me and my purpose on the planet. And that is really cool. And like to share that with people, yeah, it's a kind of unique bond. It's a special thing. And yeah, I can't get enough of it. Because like vulnerability, and this is something else I wanted to ask you about, is for me, I find vulnerability quite hard. And I could talk about it quite a bit, but I wanted to hear your thoughts on vulnerability. And I'm going to preface this by saying that I know you've recorded some stuff that you have not put effort into sharing with others. Maybe like I got the edge in there because I'm a close friend or something, and I've been able to see some of your stuff, but you haven't like put it out to the world. And tell me about that. What are you thinking? What's going through your head?
Okay, so I really like this question because I have something that I wanted to say about it anyway. So in songwriting, when I first started writing, Travis, my friend Bob's brother, gave me a really, really, really awesome piece of advice. And it might be the most valuable piece of advice that I've ever gotten in songwriting. And that is vulnerability-wise, when you're writing, and it doesn't necessarily have to be this rigid, but write a line of truth and a line of bullshit. Line of truth, line of bullshit. Like you mix it. You fiction, nonfiction, fiction, nonfiction. And it doesn't have to be like that tight, like I said, but it helps to hide what the true story is. And that helps to protect your vulnerability. You're saying what you want to say, but the listener doesn't know what's necessary. Like they don't know the whole story.
Right.
And that makes me feel better about sharing it, is that some of this is true in here. If you were to dig it out, or if I were to tell you what's true, but some of it just is whatever, and it helps me feel good about sharing it, I guess, because if I were to say the whole truth and exactly what I mean, it would probably be scary for me to share it because I don't want to be known that well, I guess, or I don't want. I don't know. There's just some things that you want to keep to yourself, and you don't need to. I keep saying you. I mean me.
You mean metaphorically you. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some things that I want to keep to myself, or want to just kind of cover it up so that it's not obvious. And that helps with that. And then your follow-up question was about my music that I didn't release. And that's maybe a little more, I don't think that it has anything to do with vulnerability. It probably does to some extent. But in my mind, what I've recorded on my YouTube page is kind of just like, or it's like a time capsule kind of. Like I just kind of want it to be there. Sounds morbid, but like in case I die and someone misses me and they want to hear my songs again. That's kind of why it's there.
It doesn't sound morbid at all. Like, I guess, topically, yes, it's morbid, but that sounds so true. That sounds so like, I really identify with that. I make music that I wonder if anybody's going to hear it and like hear me through it, you know, after I'm gone. I think about in sometimes like my kids and stuff like that, or
Yeah.
I wonder if I ever have grandkids, you know, like it's like, man, this is quite the time capsule. So that's interesting to me. Like, I think that's a very profound and interesting piece of advice that I've gotten from Travis about a line of truth and a line of bullshit. And obviously, yeah, sometimes you might have 2 lines of truth and
Yeah.
3 lines of bullshit. I get that it's not a perfect rule, but I do that too, you know, like, for me, sometimes I tell stories with my songs, and the way that I can dig into the characters sometimes come from a very deep, genuine place from myself. But if anybody knew that, they might think less of me or something, you know, I could get concerned. So, wow, that's profound. That's really good.
Isn't it?
Tell Travis he's
All
like,
the time.
yeah.
All the time. Yeah.
Well, and the thing is, like, I think that in a practical sense, so like I can have songs, like I'm a rapper and I can be kind of self-obsessed at times where like I'm just literally processing the shit that I'm thinking. But I feel like those songs are less helpful for people. And an example of would be The Grind. My song, The Grind, I talked to my wife, I talked to you, I probably talked to my buddy Garrett around the time that I wrote it, and as I was processing some heavy shit. And it was very just like maybe unique to me as I felt it. And you wanted to listen to it. I hadn't sent music to anybody in a long time, and I just thought, sure, I'll do that. I'll just give it a shot. No pressure, just whatever. See if she likes it, see if she doesn't. And you were like, wow, this is just like the conversation we had. And that's cool to me. But I also recognize that there is an intrinsically, there's something about that piece that is not widely applicable. There's something about it that isn't going to strike too many people deep in the chest. It's kind of self-absorbed. It's like, this is the thing that I'm processing. And yes, there's value and there's honesty in that. But something like Suspect, which in a way is like, there's parts of it that, let's say, yeah, is line of truth and line of bullshit. You know what I mean? Like there's a line of like, there's something really hard hitting, and then there's maybe some metaphor that wraps it that I'm much more proud of Suspect. Like The Grind was something I had to get off my chest, but Suspect was something that I wanted to, it was like something I wanted to put out there. It was something more than just an exhalation of breath. It was art to me. And yeah, man, Travis has it nailed there, because it's very safe, you know. And sometimes I write about really personal things that having that bit of safety is wise, you know.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and if it feels scary to share, or if you feel like, oh, I'm gonna say all this stuff to whoever's listening, and like that makes me feel bad, like, what's the word? Bad is too general.
Ashamed?
Or like ashamed, or yeah, ashamed is probably the best word for that. If you feel ashamed for sharing what you're sharing, then maybe you need to add more bullshit.
I like that.
Yeah.
And I like, you know what I like about that in particular is that it's not just like from the standpoint of art, because in some ways that's going to make it kind of wider. You add a little bit of bullshit to truth, and more people can kind of find their own truth, you know, through it. But it's eminently practical on a psychological level, and that's what I like about it. It's like, yeah, you got to be vulnerable in music, but it doesn't have to be a therapy session.
Yeah.
You know, it's a different kind of therapy, and it's one where you can escape without people knowing your darkest demons. It's one that you can put out there for someone else to maybe discover their own in, but it can have that level of detachment from you because it's not you, it's a piece of art. Man, that's really good.
Mhm. Yeah, like you can let something go without it being super obvious what it is you're getting rid of.
Yeah.
And I kind of see writing that way too. To touch back on one of your previous questions was, well, I don't remember the question, but yeah, it feels like I'm able to let go of it once I've written it out and kind of dealt with whatever it is that it's about in my mind. And then once the song is done, I always sign I write it in a notebook, like pen and paper, and then I sign the bottom, and then I never touch it again.
Really?
Yeah.
You've got a ritual.
Yeah. I guess so. That's the symbol that's like you can't go back and change this now. You quit working on it.
Yeah,
no
that's really valuable too because I think as writers who are just kind of getting used to their own style, it goes along with perfectionism. You do need to put the pen down. And if it's a ritual, if you got to sign the bottom of it, there's a certain time where you do need to step away. And I think that, yeah, it can be really plaguing as well to just have a niggling thought in your brain that this could be better. Whereas if you are willing to say, sure, it could be better, anything could be better, but this is good, that is that's powerful. That is you getting in touch with what you're supposed to be doing and respecting it and not demanding too much of yourself. I really like the process of creativity. I think it's so cool how people approach it differently with different little tidbits of advice and inspiration. What is something that you want to do more of in the future? Is there a certain area creatively you want to grow into? Something you've been maybe afraid of or something that intimidates you?
I maybe haven't thought that far ahead, but I definitely want to get better at guitar. I've recently been practicing things that I'm not good at, like picking, and I don't know anything about theory, and I can't do bar chords, and there's just all these areas that are not so good, and then I'm really pretty good at strumming open chords. That's my peak. It's where I really shine. But if I always play things that I'm good at or comfortable with, then only that's going to get better, and everything else is still just always going to be at the same level. So I've been doing this really intentional practice where I set a timer, and for 10 minutes I do finger exercises, dexterity stuff. And bar chords, getting the strength in my hand to be able to get all the strings to ring on a bar chord. And then for the next 10 minutes, I try to learn some kind of theory. So I learned a C scale. I didn't know where any of that was before, or even where the notes are on the neck. I didn't know any of that. So working on just learning something. And then for the last 10 minutes, just play something. Play something that I'm trying to learn, like one of Bob's songs, or just a cover that I want to learn or something. And I started doing this on January 2nd. I'm looking over here because I have this.
Oh yeah, show me.
I have a little whiteboard that I made.
What?
It says practice what you suck at the top.
Yeah, I see that. And then what's good?
So, what's good? Yeah, these are make sure you reward yourself for what is going well. So I started that on January 2nd. And within 2 weeks, I noticed huge improvements. I learned that C scale in a couple weeks, and now I just know it. It's just
oh man, that's cool.
Old brain. I just know how to do that. And the fingers are getting faster, and I can play bar chords now. And it's only been a month, and it's only half an hour a day. So it pays off to just practice what you suck at.
It's very disciplined too. Yeah, that's just, I don't know, that's just a comment, but that's very disciplined. Discipline's something that I've struggled with. I know I didn't have it when I was trying to learn theory, or rather when theory was being thrown at my face. when I was a child, because I did do some piano lessons, and I still can't read music, but painfully slow. Uh, but I know that I took a theory class because, like, the whole point of what Mrs. Bulger was trying to teach me was like how to write my own music, because that seemed like the most practical approach, and to explore other creative endeavors in composition. But there's so much that just either A, flew over my head, or that I couldn't care about and it just seems so unreal to me. But maybe that was lack of discipline, and maybe I'd be a better composer if I had that. I went to vocal lessons and with a person named Mallory Chipman, and she's an artist out of Edmonton, and she's phenomenal. She teaches at Grant Mac, and she just taught me something really simply, and it was theory. And it was like, okay, so say you got your C chord, starts in C, or your C, your whole octave, C, D, all the way up to C, right? She's like, if you just start on a different note, like D, and you end on D, you have a variation. This is a chord, like this is a place to play in and of itself. And you can do that with literally a major or a minor. And they have like Dorian, like they have different names for it, which I didn't retain. But the fact is, I'd never thought, oh, if I'm playing in C minor, which I'd figured out before, what if I just start on like the E flat and I end on the E flat? Well, then it becomes major. But anyway, the point is like, there's different areas to play from theory that can open your mind as a composer. That, yeah, it's really just like opening your toolkit, and good on you for having the discipline, drive, and intention to actually develop that skill.
Mhm.
Like, who else is doing that? I mean, it seems silly, but it's like there's a lot of people who are just happy with what they've got,
Yeah.
but you're
Well,
challenging yourself.
part of that is that I wanna be like my bandmates. They're
Ah,
so good. And they like Austin understands a lot about theory and guitar. Like he's an amazing guitar player. So having that around me is just like, I want to know what he's talking about because it's all friend. So I'm getting there. I might be able to understand what he's trying to explain to me now.
that's good. What's one of the greatest, like, what's your favorite thing about being a creative person?
I don't know. I guess just having that. I haven't thought of that. What my favorite part is, because I haven't really considered not doing that. Like my parents always said I was creative, and it's just fun. I don't know. It's just like a way to play as an adult. Like whether it's music or otherwise, like writing or video stuff or whatever, or drawing, or yeah, it's a way to play, and it's just fun. So I guess that's my favorite part. It's fun.
That's important to keep hold of too, because I've had personal experience with this being a fun thing, this being the thing that I do to cope and process and enjoy my life, and have it turn around on me and become a bit of a demon, where you have that expectation where you're like, man, people are listening. I want to be good. There's perfectionism there. Or nobody cares. One of the worst ones for me is like, nobody cares, which isn't true, but it can feel true at times. And when you get caught up in all that stuff, then this wonderful, life affirming, joyful thing that we get to have as creative people becomes sullied. And I think, at least in my case, it's particularly tragic when I'm in that emotional state, because I can't stop. Music is in my blood, and without it, I'm not Spencer Richard. So even when I'm really down, I'm making music. Even if I hate it, even if I fucking hate it, it's like I can't stop making it. It's like I'll bully myself into a place where I'm like, I'm not gonna make it. Like I'm just, nobody cares, and I'm just in my own little world. And then I'm like, I guess I'll write a song about nobody caring, you know, you know. And there's the grind, right? Like there's the piece that, seem on a surface level like just so petty and entitled and stuff like that. But I mean, I wasn't in a good mindset when I wrote it, but I processed it, and you helped with that too, which I really appreciate. Um, it's I think as a creative person, it's not easy to find friends. Maybe depending where you live, but it's not easy to find friends who are on the same wavelength, or um, people who can validate that part of you, and yeah, like they understand you in a way that maybe some other people don't. And so I appreciate that about you, as well as some of my other musical friends. But
Yeah. Yeah. It's nice to be able to talk about, for someone to just get it and you get it. And we have lots of conversations about this type of thing. Um, and yeah, it's a unique struggle, I guess, and a unique joy. And it's nice to be able to share that with someone who understands. Because like if you don't write or play anything, how could you relate to it?
yeah, yeah, I don't know. And it's funny though, because there are some people who are not musical. There's some people who are like, they like music, they like to listen to it, but they really don't have a, let's say, musically creative bone in their body. They have no desire to pick up a guitar. They don't know how to write lyrics. They don't have no interest in it. They got other shit to do. And it's for like the benefit of them too, because like those people will listen to stuff that they can connect with, and
Mhm.
like that song can help them get through. I've been listening to a book by a former U.S. Navy SEAL named David Goggins, and he's not an artist by any stretch of the imagination. It's like the guy's he's a bull. He's somebody who's been going through life from like trauma to trauma to trauma, and then he wound up in the Navy SEALs, and he's just like working his ass off. But he had this thing when he was in Hell Week about he would sing the song from Platoon where Willem Dafoe extends his arms to the sky and a helicopter's overhead and he gets shot down and killed. And it was like an ironic thing at first, but when he was suffering, like in going into the tides and going through all these challenges that they put these guys through in Hell Week, he would sing this song. This song would carry him through. And he's not a musical guy. He can't carry a note to save his life. But this is what saved him. This is the thing that gave him grounding in one of the toughest times of his life when he was trying to make something of himself. And I think about that sometimes, about how there are some people who are just, they can't help but be creative and make things they're proud of and try to do all that. And there's other people who aren't in that arena who benefit, whose lives are much richer, much fuller because of it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, you're right about that. I forgot about the people who just like music.
yeah, there's some
Like
people legit
most
like that. Yeah.
or connects in some way, and yeah, like so yeah, that was an oversight on my part, but yeah, music is huge in a lot of people's lives. Like it's one thing that you can lean on and feel understood, or puts you in a different mood,
Yeah.
whatever. Like yeah, totally useful and powerful tool.
Absolutely. All right, so I feel like we're starting to kind of wrap up our conversation in a nice little package with a colorful bow. But I wanted to know what other insight you might have, if any, if there was anything that you were kind of burning to say, because people who listen to this podcast are generally more creatively inclined. Um, there's, as far as I can tell, there's kind of a wide age range. Um, is there anything that you'd like to say or add to those people?
Yeah, actually, something comes to mind, and it was something that helped me a lot um, in general, and when I started writing too, was that when you feel inspired and you feel like you're in the zone, take a minute to reflect on why you feel that way. What did you do before? you started writing? Or what did you do before you got all fired up about an idea? Or what are you doing at the time? Like, what's the room like? How much sleep did you get? What'd you eat? What are you drinking? Like, take note of that stuff because it's important, and it can be, you can recreate that mood if you know what caused it. So that's been really helpful for me.
Is there anything like, what practical thing is it that gets you in the zone? I'm curious.
So for me, I've mentioned it before, but for me, it's moving my body.
Right.
Walking or a workout or go for a drive. It helps if I've like eaten well and like drinking lots of water and just like feeling healthy. If I feel like I'm feeling healthy, that helps. Like if I feel like I'm like ready for the day, like if I'm showered and dressed and like wash my face, that makes a difference. Like I said, like the room and that it smells good makes a big difference for me. You have to be comfortable. I have to be comfortable. I don't know. There's lots of things that I sometimes listening to a podcast will really put me in the mood.
Like this one.
Yours? Yes. Yeah, definitely yours. Actually, I finished a song after listening to your first episode. I think I texted you about it. I was like, yeah, it totally worked. I listened to it and then I finished the song right away.
The one with Garrett Davis?
I think so, yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah, he's gonna like hearing that.
Yeah.
He's so full of himself. Just kidding. No, Garrett's legit one of my best friends. It's like, if not my best friend, actually. Like, I wanted to have him front and center on that podcast because that's what I want this podcast to be. Is like, I know and suspect always that the audience is going to be small, but I want it to be for the people who actually listen to it to get some value out of it. Like, when I was in theater in university, I dropped out later, but when I was in theater, I was surrounded by people who cared about similar things, very creative, avant-garde personalities who wanted to do fascinating things with their lives. And the conversations were directed in that territory, and the aspirations were directed in that territory. And I found that it was inspiring to be there, almost cult-like, where you're just like, to vibe on the same frequency felt so good because it was reflected back to you from so many people. That's what I want this podcast to be. And like, first and foremost, it's for me because I get lonely, as you know. Like I want to understand and connect with people who are also creative like me, because without that, I could be lost, you know? But secondly, it's for other people. It's for people like me who kind of want to hear from other creative types and connect with them and listen to them and catch that little bit of inspiration to move on to the next project, because it's an environment like any other. And for that reason, I think you've been a fantastic guest, as well as a fantastic friend and a singer-songwriter. I've really enjoyed collaborating with you, and being your friend, of course. And I look forward to our future collaborations. And yeah, this was good. And if you're listening to this, you're welcome.
No, thanks for having me on. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. We always get into some like really deep and satisfying conversations. So I always appreciate that from you. And yeah, our collaboration was a really awesome experience, and it turned out great. I love it. So I'm super excited to keep doing more of that.
Totally.
In the future. Sure. Huh?
All right. Well, I guess I could just end it with, where should people go to check out your stuff or Loser Tuesdays if they were interested to see more of what you do?
All right. Yeah, there's a handful of videos on Loser Tuesdays on YouTube. We're also on Facebook and Instagram, just at Loser Tuesdays, all one word. It's always all one word, isn't it?
Yeah. Not for me. I have an underscore in mine, Servant Kingdom.
Okay. See, good to clarify. And then my stuff is like, it's pretty underwhelming. But it's on Lindsay Rendleman is a YouTube page, and it has a session that I did recently. It's just acoustic.
Right.
songs that- so.
And listen, if you're listening to this, she doesn't share it with people, so please go check it out. Like, show some love. You know, I've been blown away by some of your music, and
Thanks.
I think that, yeah, it's just really special to give it some time. So if you are listening to this, check out Lindsay Rendleman on YouTube. You won't be disappointed. And the nest that she records in for the nest sessions are really cool. Is Bob filming you, hey?
That's Bob doing the filming. Yeah, we created a cool little set. It's a secret location.
Is it in your house?
Yeah.
So it's not that secret.
Not that, but I don't know if you would guess where it is.
Okay, I'll guess.
Okay, guess. You're going to guess right?
I'm going to guess right now.
Okay.
It is in your basement. Is that right so far?
I don't know. Should I tell? Yeah, it's in the... I've never been good at keeping secrets. You'll probably just get it. It's in the basement. Yes.
And it's under the stairs.
What? Did I tell you that?
You did not tell me that.
No. You're a good guesser. Yeah, it's under the stairs.
Well, that was just a guess, but because you seem a bit elevated and like you're in a cubby. Yeah. See, like people are going to no idea what we're talking about. That's why they have to go see it. They have to go check out some of your music. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna cut the episode now. I'm gonna chop it right when my hands connect. Thank you for being on the show. Okay.
Sorry.
Can we coordinate this?
Yeah.
All right. And thank you for listening to today's podcast. If you found any of this valuable, please consider subscribing, recommending this to a friend, or leaving a positive review on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you happen to be listening. If you watch this on my Servant YouTube channel or Facebook page, please leave a comment and share. I love to hear from my listeners and learn from them. Learn more about me at www.servant.com. That's SRVENT.com. Thank you again for your time. Now go be creative and sane.